Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the Excel channel. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let's just jump right into it. Today I'll be bringing you guys the latest Overwatch patch details and my thoughts, so let's get into it. I'll only be doing the important details, by the way, no bug fixes. So first off is the armor change, which I think is pretty unnecessary to be honest, but not too big of a deal, but overall slightly negative. This is because the previous armor change already felt impactful enough and just about right, so any more is pushing it, I think. But because of the fact that capped at 50%, I don't think it's that big a deal. The next change is a tweak in the tank passive with extra ultimate farm reduction, but increased knockback resistance. Overall, a good change because the knockback reduction was a bit much, and the extra reduced ult farm helps a lot more than the 10% extra knockback resistance. The first of the tank's buff patch is 0.5 upgrade to Matrix and extra missile damage on D.Va. Decently sized buff, but D.Va's main problems aren't really solved, being not projectile characters like Mei, Zim, and Zarya. Doomfist is next, and his passive received a duration and health upgrade. This may not seem like a lot if you look at because the health upgrade is only by 5 seconds, and he keeps that extra health for 2 extra seconds now, which may not seem like much, but ultimately it will make Doomfist extremely annoying for squishes and increase Doom's survivability by quite a bit. The problem with Doom being CC is not fixed, but to be fair, Doom is good enough where you can still get value in the face of characters like Sombra or Brig. Junker Queen is next, and she might be insane now, honestly. Her shout, being already one of the best abilities in the game, gets another buff with an extra 25 health, which increases her survivability in clutch switch situations. Her passive also gets a buff and is now 2.5 damage, and I'm not kidding, but after this she might be a top tier tank. She was already pretty good, but now she is just so hard to kill that extra buff in the passive really goes a long way. She's one of the healthiest characters in the game, so overall I would say a positive change. Next is Mauga, and one of the most, on its face at least, absurd changes. Mauga gets a numbers buff to his stomp, which is pretty unnecessary, but whatever. But the cardiac overdrive, he now gets 100% lifesteal and 40% damage reduction, in exchange for only half of that being given to teammates, and also the duration being reduced by 2 seconds. The first part doesn't really matter because it ends up only being a 10% drop, but the 3 seconds is crucial, I believe, and actually extremely relevant. Yes, well now he's virtually unkillable during cardiac overdrive unless hit by an anti. It only lasts 3 seconds and can be much more easily played around. Well, at least with 5 seconds you get less ability to play around it during its uptime. The Orisa change is only an extra 0.5 second duration on Fortify, which is pretty whatever because it doesn't really change your matchups or anything like that. Contrasting from Orisa is a character with a huge buff, being Ramatra, who gets a 5 damage buff to Pummel and 75 armor buff on Nemesis form. 75 armor buff is obviously crazy on its face, but the 5 buff is actually huge as well because the extra 5 ends up creating a breakpoint that makes 250 targets require 1 less punch to kill, which can be crucial when they're getting healed. Overall, this makes Ram kind of absurd and especially dominant in lower ranks due to his raw strength, which is why they tuned him down in a recent hotfix. Ryan is next and deservedly gets buffed. His shield regen rate and overall health gets increased, and does 25 extra with charge, allowing him to kill Mei and Reaper with charge. Very good changes because Ryan has always been one of the most healthy tanks to be good, so always nice for Ryan buffs. Also, it was pretty stupid that he can't kill Mei and Reaper with charge, and the fact that they lowered the damage in the first place. Roadhog gets a Pigpen buff in just about every way about it, and which is pretty unfortunate because Hog, even after recent nerfs, is still pretty good, and Pigpen increasing hook lethality is not great by any means. Sigma's one-shot combo gets returned with an accretion 40 damage buff, which is overall good because Sigma is just an above average tank, and this is nice, but not overbearing buff should make him good and more fun to play. Winston primal health and secondary fire charge rate gets buffed. This is another just good buff that helps one of the healthier characters. The extra poke with the secondary buff is nice, but isn't game breaking, and the primal health is also cool, but I think he can still get beamed pretty easily in it. But overall, pretty good. Wrecking Ball's next, and is pretty much just a quality of life change, because his two buffs are ball form reload speed and a bonus on health able to be given to teammates. Reload speed is nice but pretty meh, and kind of just a good quality of life, as I mentioned. And ball almost never gives his shield to teammates in an actual game, so kind of another nothing burger change. In stark contrast to that is Zarya getting a crazy buff that was even walked back a bit in the recently mentioned hotfix. She gets an extra 50 health on her bubbles and 0.5 duration time, which allows her to have 1 more charge, 2 more mitigation, and 3 either more extra bubbles with everyone just trying to break the bubbles as fast as possible, or extra mitigation with the added duration of them just not risking shooting and giving her charge. The next change is reduced health recovery reduction with the DPS passive against tanks, which could have been the only change to tanks this patch, which probably would have been fine for making tank a more healthy and fun role to play. But otherwise, great change that helps tanks stay alive and play the game more independently of the healers. Bob gets the tank passive is the next change, which is stupid because Ashe was already great, and honestly this might put her over the edge a little bit. McCassidy gets a fall off nerf, which is good because even after recent nerfs, he was still too good. Bonk gets damage removed from it, but gets 2 compensations buff that kind of make her even better a little bit, and because of this she got a health reduction in the recent hotfix. Ana is next and gets a 0.5 time reduction on tanks with her sleep dart, but in my opinion anti is more important and has way more of an impact on tanks than sleep does. The patch ends with Illari getting a quality of life change and Zen a small ultimate cost reduction. Overall, I would say an interesting but overall mostly negative patch due to making some tanks just over the edge. The ones I predict being the best are Mauga, JQ, and possibly Doom. But thanks for watching this far. Make sure to like and subscribe.